I saw that Nancy Kerrigan is now doing LinkedIn ads. Like, I'm trying to understand ever since I saw this commercial on YouTube of Nancy Kerrigan slinging LinkedIn. Trying to figure out like the relevance of it. It's one of those mysteries of commercials of late that I just don't get. Um, is there like just suddenly this reemergence of cultural interest in Nancy Kerrigan, the figure skater who in 1994 was clubbed by fellow American Olympic skater Tanya Harding? Is she just I don't know. I sort of do this thing now. I have a general rule where if everybody's talking about something just out of the blue, I just automatically assume that it's a TikTok thing. I don't know, but yeah, I saw this commercial on YouTube before watching a video where Nancy Kerrigan was dancing with like a bear or something, um, and I just saw the LinkedIn uh, logo come up. You know, the LinkedIn is the social media website for professionals, ostensibly. I don't know if it's that. I don't know. I've been using. I guess I noticed this commercial because I've been all summer long on LinkedIn, posting jobs, job applications, applying for jobs, just looking at the job market in general. Because yeah, I finished graduate school back in the spring, and I'm looking for something that has a little bit of permanence now. By permanence, I mean like something with benefits, right? And I am working right now, but I am nevertheless still looking. It's like it's a term by term contract, right? So if everything goes well, hopefully I can kind of keep renewing that contract with every term. But there doesn't appear to be over like on the horizon um, any kind of benefits package, any kind of retirement, all those good things that you generally want with a job, right? When you take a job as a professional, you don't just want to be working paycheck to paycheck. You don't just want to be taking a big chunk of every paycheck and paying all of your health insurance, right? Um, all of your dental and all of your vision. And reminds me, I need to go to the optometrist. I think I'm getting farsighted. So, you know, all these things. Um, hopefully, you get some kind of a compensation package like that, right? But in education, it's very difficult to get that unless you're in the public education system, right? Unless you're teaching elementary school, middle school, or high school. And it is true that in these professions, right, that teachers get paid very very little relative to other professional fields. This goes all the way back to the beginning of public education, and really to the beginning of general of teaching in general. I mean, do you know how much Socrates got paid? I mean, you know, like nothing, right? And he had the worst health insurance ever. It was a bad joke, but I'm not in the classroom yet. I need to refrain from teacher jokes, which are some cases like worse than dad jokes. But yeah, like I mean, teachers have always gotten paid very very little. I think typically because it's historically been seen as women's work, and as we all know, like women have always gotten lesser pay historically than men. And so, even as the profession becomes more, uh, gender diverse, they still get paid very little. But I will say that in a lot of states, the benefits packages are actually pretty good, pretty genuine. Like my mom taught for 38 years, and she could have retired, I believe, at 25 or 30 years, if I'm not mistaken. But she chose to stay on extra because if she did, she would get an exponential boost in her retirement. Um, and so, yeah, and that's generally like a lot of states, I think, because of teachers' unions, but also just like social advancements, have made it to be where like teachers still get paid very less, but they do okay with benefits, right? So anyway, so I want to be a teacher with benefits, but I also don't want to really go back to teaching high school. I did that already. That's kind of in my rearview mirror, right? Um, and so yeah, therefore I've been on LinkedIn this summer looking for just permanent posts at colleges, um, in universities, and even to a degree, even like the private sector, right? Even like the private for-profit sector, right? Just looking for anything that maybe I could be a good fit for, and all that. And yeah, like right now, I am I'm an adjunct instructor, and I just the last time I guess my last show that I did. This is, by the way, Mike Booty. This is the Midnight Citizen Show. I'm your host, Mike Booty. Um, yeah, the last show that I did, I hadn't yet gotten a new position in addition to the current position I have. So 2 days a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays, I'm teaching at the University of Alabama at Birmingham, where I just graduated from. And then Mondays and Wednesdays, I'm teaching at a community college. So I like teaching there as well. So that's, and altogether, it's like 7 classes that I'm teaching, 6 classes actually, which is, that's like the equivalent of a high school teacher, and so yeah, it's so that happened, and that all happened because of LinkedIn. I will definitely give LinkedIn credit for that. But yeah, generally this summer, I've found LinkedIn just like a dismal black hole of con artists, ghost jobs, like applying for jobs that don't exist. And yeah, just generally like just shady scams, and it's been very depressing. Like I don't, so like yeah, like I noticed Nancy Kerrigan was doing this ad for LinkedIn. This is like went on a tangent within a tangent there, right? But what can I say? It's early right now actually. It's about 5 o'clock in the morning here on Saturday, August 24th, 2024. And I've been up now for a couple of hours. I'm trying to get myself back in the habit of like waking up at a reasonable hour, because I've and I know that 3 o'clock is not a reasonable hour, but it's just my sleep schedule's been very erratic for the summer, right? Because I haven't had a regular full-time job. I haven't just been waking up at the same time every single morning, going to work, getting in the car, doing that commute, and all that. So I've been, I started my community college gig this past week. And then this week I start the other gig on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So like it's full force this coming week, right? Which I know to some of you who have like a 9 to 5, or longer, Monday through Friday job, it's like it does not sound like a lot. And it really isn't, and it's not like when I was teaching high school, where it's like that first year that I was teaching, I was working anywhere between about 50 to 60 hours a week. Because in addition to teaching for 40 hours, there would still be like a lot of additional work in terms of lesson planning and grading papers and all that. And so, yeah, my workload right now is no way whatsoever equal to the kind of workload I had when I was teaching high school. But let me look up Nancy Kerrigan's LinkedIn ad. So like it interested me because yeah, like, they made a movie about this. I Tanya, right? They made a movie called I Tanya, which is about Tanya Harding. Um, and in 1994, I think it was it just before the Winter Olympics? Um, or some before a pre-qualifying match or something, right? Tanya Harding was attacked by an assailant with a club, or was it just like a baseball bat, a baseball club, a golf club? I don't know. She got bashed in the knee by someone who quickly fled, and the investigation led to this guy Jeff Galooey, right, who was Tanya Harding's husband, and uh, it led to Tanya Harding being. I don't think she was ever like found guilty in any kind of criminal court, but the like I don't know, American Figure Skating Association, found her guilty of conspiracy, like conspiring to, to disable her. It's not even like a rival or an opponent or anything, but I guess like figure skating is just such a solo sport. You're out there, even if you're on a team like the Olympic figure skating team. You have rivalries. There's people that I guess there's fame, and you just want to be seen as the person with the who's the best in the world, like the number one figure skater in the entire world, right? So I think the thinking was that Tanya Harding was jealous of Nancy Kerrigan, and like Nancy Kerrigan. I mean, she had reason to be, I suppose. Nancy Kerrigan was perceived as like America's, like just this princess, this bourgeois, like ice skating princess, right? And Tanya Harding was seen as this, like, again, this is the movie, right? This is Margot Robbie who plays I Tanya, or Tanya Harding. She comes from an impoverished background, right? Alcoholic mother. She can't afford skating lessons, and but she's so good that her coach does it for free. And she has to like sew her own dresses and mend her own skates and things like that. And so yeah, and like the Figure Skating Association, which is depicted in the movie, and I'm sure this is probably in real life as well. And this is this is a running theme of a lot of like sports narratives, is that it takes a lot of money to play a sport, right? And so for that reason, a lot of professional sports organizations can be like the Figure Skating Association or whatever can be snobby, right, about who they let on their ice. Yeah, I think I think like as time has gone by, right, as like something like 30 years has gone by now, I think, and obviously because of that ESPN documentary that covered the whole event in retrospective, and then the movie that they based on it, I think like we now see what really happened, that most likely Tanya Harding was just like any competitor, right? Any contender. She's probably just really irritated that she was constantly getting upstaged by Nancy Kerrigan, right? This pretty little toothpaste commercial. And she probably voiced some of those concerns to her husband, Jeff Galooey, who then maybe just got tired of hearing about it, and just finally decided to do something about it. And so, as the years have gone by, Tanya Harding has never changed her story. But she did get banned, right, from professional figure skating, from ever competing in the Olympics again, and all that. And so Tanya Harding went on to like be a boxer, right? She was like a female boxer, and landscaping. I think she went into gardening and landscaping and things like that for people, like just taking these kind of blue collar jobs, right? And Nancy Kerrigan went on to do LinkedIn commercials. Okay, once again, let's see if we can find this Nancy Kerrigan LinkedIn commercial. See, like, this is like when you want a cop, there's never one around. When I want an ad on YouTube, I can't find it. Yeah, I just can't. Everything is like the raw footage of the Nancy Kerrigan attack. See, here's an ad, but it's not the ad that I want. Hang on. So Nancy Kerrigan is being filmed right now, getting off the ice, taking her skates off, kind of walking around, and here she goes into the backstage of the ice rink. Why? The date on this is January 6th, 1994. Not the worst thing to ever happen in America on January 6th. Yeah, it's just terrible. She looked like she was in so much pain. She did come back to that, though. From that, I think she did skate again. Wasn't she on Dancing with the Stars? So I keep on trying to find this LinkedIn ad. I don't know. I can't find it. Okay. All right, so I just typed it into Google. LinkedIn debuts AI tools for B2B marketers, business to business. Okay, yeah, it looks like here it is on Instagram. Okay, not on YouTube, but here it is on Instagram, I think. Is this it? The gold standard of B2B marketing.
CRM Cereal is the solution your business
There she is.
to win like a champion. It's toasty and crunchy.
Hang on. What about user adoption?
It's crunchy.
What about compatibility?
Well, it's toasty.
But can it port my existing database?
Let's ask CRM Panda.
CRM Panda. Commercial's not telling me anything.
Dancing pandas don't sell CRM. Ads on LinkedIn do. With 70 million decision makers, LinkedIn is the place to be.
Okay. What does CRM stand for? Customer Resource Management. I don't know. I'm going to say it stands for Customer Resource Management. Okay, there's so many questions. I love the ad was very meta, like, because YouTube ads generally don't tell you anything. It's just absurdity out of context, which I know is like the definition of absurdity, but yeah, she was like dancing with a panda, and there's an ad executive, I guess, watching the commercial for like a, of her dancing with a panda. But why was it Nancy Kerrigan? Like, I mean, does she mean anything to anyone anymore? I'm sorry. I don't mean to like be so mean about Nancy Kerrigan's faded celebrity, but I just assume that maybe it's like a TikTok thing, or I don't know. Maybe she's like on some reality show or something about former celebrities. I don't know. Beginner's Guide to CRM. What is CRM? Customer Relationship Management. Okay, I got two out of 3 of those words. Customer Relationship Management. I guess that makes sense. I know what B2B stands for, business to business. I know that much. So yeah. So yeah, but yeah, why was like Nancy Kerrigan doing a LinkedIn commercial? That's the mystery. If you know, I guess if you know, that really that the catchphrase, right, of 2024. I was driving the other day, and I saw two billboards that both used that acronym, right? IYK, YK. If you know, you know. So I saw two billboards that had the same acronym. One was for a loss one was for a lawyer, and one was for like a dispensary. So if you know, you know. Anyway. So yeah, I thought, like, so the other day when I saw this Nancy Kerrigan ad, I was just walking through the room. My wife was the one watching YouTube, and I just happened to see Nancy Kerrigan dancing with like this bear, and which now I know is a panda, on YouTube. And then the LinkedIn slogan came up, and I was like, what's going on with Nancy Kerrigan and LinkedIn? And yeah, like I figured that maybe they were sort of doing something clever, and they weren't, and this made me irritated because this is a good idea. So if anybody who works for LinkedIn is hearing this right now, you can contact me over at mikesbonfire.substack.com, okay? If you want to buy this idea from me, okay? Here's the idea. So Nancy Kerrigan is hanging out at her like posh mansion somewhere, living off of her billions of dollars, and she's the only problem is that her gardener just quit, right? So she's talking to the camera about like, just I have no time to find a new gardener, but with LinkedIn I'm right, or a landscaper, but with LinkedIn I instantly found somebody who can help me out. And so it cuts out to the, like a month later or whatever, and Tanya Harding is out there like pulling up hedges and planting flowers and like raking leaves and things like that. And Nancy Kerrigan just tells her she missed a spot. And Tanya Harding is then looks to the camera and she's like, after I lost my ability to, make a living with the only thing I know how to do, which is figure skating, I had to, quickly pivot in my careers. And, fortunately with LinkedIn, it makes me easy to find work. So, all right. So if anybody from LinkedIn wants to buy that from me, once again, mikesbonfire.substack.com. I will accept it just as long as like you give me a generous, benefits package. In addition to my salary. So that'd be great. Thank you. Oh, let me get that. There's my first alarm right there. Yeah, I'm trying to condition myself to wake up earlier, and it's had some adverse effects. It's not that like during the summer I was like totally lazy. I would usually wake up every morning around 7 or 7:30 in the morning, but that's not going to cut it anymore because my first classes throughout the week, every day of the week, as I said, except Friday, are at 8:30. So, and I am a morning person. That's the reason why I like to teach early in the morning. I like to get up and take the classes, go to the classes and teach the kids, and then I'm off in the afternoon. And and I like that. I like teaching the students who do that as well. I thought that generally there's like a kind of a cliche that students who take the early morning classes, they waited until the last minute to sign up, and so they're the ones who really do not want to be there, but they were forced to be because they procrastinated. I'm not finding that so much true. I think like a lot of these students are also morning people, and also at this community college I teach, there's like a lot of students who like work and have jobs and other commitments, later on in the day. So, yeah, it's just, but it's still just waking up on time in the morning is something that I'm just kind of having to teach myself how to do. But I don't know. It's not really that difficult lately because every year around like late August, I don't know, pretty much throughout the entire month of August, I started having these, like first week of August or so. I just have like anxiety dreams, right? Like I don't know, I guess you could call them nightmares, but that's not really, like kids have nightmares, right? Like, dreams about monsters and things like that. And sometimes I wish I still dreamed about monsters. But yeah, as an adult, right, you have like a lot of the nightmares I have are anxiety dreams, like things that can actually happen in your real life. Not to say that there aren't maybe monsters in real life, I don't know. But right, like just, waking up late for work on like an important day or something like that. And what happens with me is like generally I have anxiety dreams about like teaching. And even though I haven't been teaching high school for 5 years, for a couple of years now, I taught it for 5 years. Every August, just through basically the entire month, that's like when school starts, right? Is just dreaming about, like kids being out of hand in the classroom, not being able to calm them down and teach the lesson no matter what you do. And, or I have jobs about like just my administrators being really upset with me or my colleagues being upset with me and I don't know why. That's just, that right there is like where you just feel utterly helpless and you lack agency and you can't do anything about it. And, these are things that certainly can happen in real life and did happen to me, as I think they happen to most people who have jobs. From time to time, there's just nothing you can do, right? To sort of, to win at work. So yeah, I always have these anxiety dreams, every year when school starts back. And it's again, it's like different for me now that I'm teaching college. And the reason why I want to keep teaching college, and I've said this over and over again, is, right, that classroom management is basically not really a thing, in college, at least not that I've witnessed. And I haven't really taught to any other, colleagues that I have now, other professors, instructors, anything like that, who really have these issues where the kids come in and they're like unruly. And, like if you want to, see a lot of this stuff, go on YouTube and just type in teacher freakouts, right? It's like because kids now can bring cell phones into school, and they've been able to now for a while. They'll pull out their phones and intentionally like make their teachers mad and freak them out and curse them and all that stuff. And so now it's like, teachers can very easily get, tempted into just freaking out in the classroom, right? So that a student can get some YouTube content or whatever. And it's just, so like you can see this stuff. And fortunately that never happened to me in the classroom, but it does happen in all across this country, in America's high schools and middle schools and things like that. I just I got out of all that, and it's just, in the college classroom management is just like making sure that the students get everything that they need in time, right? And then but in high school it's just like, completely different, because you're in that classroom and the kids have a tendency, they've known each other forever, and they're on that set schedule with each other all day long, and they don't yet have the understanding, the context of where all of this stuff that they're learning all day long or being told all day long, what they're going to do with it. So they push back against it. And it just it can lead to, like, kids are, feral creatures, right? They just are in a cage all day long with you, and they can lash out at you, right? And it's just one of those things, like that's that dream I keep having, right, where I'm at the front of the classroom and I'm trying to teach the kids a lesson, and they're just like, like actively pushing back against me, and there's nothing I can do, right? And that never happened to me in the classroom that much, right? It just was like, generally I would be, teaching, and, like, kids would, come in late, or they would be distracted by their computers, but it was like easily like fires I could kind of put out, because I was in real life. I had agency, right? But yeah, there were some times where there was just literally nothing I could do, and just the kid would, talk and or disrupt class, and it would just be one of these things where I would just say to myself, I don't think I can do this for the rest of my life. Like, I just don't think I can do it, right? It's just so, because again, I think, like, teachers have to, right, deal, like, one of the reasons that I think a lot of teachers get into teaching is because they, number one, love teaching, they love working with kids. But I think high school teachers and are, and to an extent middle school teachers, what we call secondary education educators, get into these jobs because on some level they really love a certain subject that they want to teach. They have this love for history or science or math or English, like me, right? And they want to share that love with a younger generation, right? And I think, like, for me, definitely, I had a love of the subject above all else. I liked English, and kids came a second. I can speak honestly about this now, right? Because I'm not teaching high school anymore, and I can pretty confidently say that I never will again. These things can change, but even so, like, I know people can change, right? But, like, I have always enjoyed working with kids, but I enjoy my subject more, and I think, like, that's not necessarily a bad thing for me to say, because like, having a love for something means that you want to share it with other people, and, like, also having a love for something means that you can tolerate a lot of distractions, a lot of disruptions, a lot of nonchalance from other people, right? So if I were in a classroom and I had kids who were pushing back against learning a subject, it would only be because I loved that subject so much that I was able to, ignore all those distractions and disruptions and speak to the kids. And I think one of the things that does make me, even today, like, a very effective educator is because I can engage kids, I think, with my love for it. I think my little sister Melinda is the same way. My little sister Melinda teaches social studies to middle schoolers, and I think she has, like, that kind of weird, perfect combination of a teacher who not only loves kids but also loves her subject equally, right? And so that's what makes her so good at that. And just to hear her sort of talk to her own kids, my nieces, and also to watch, like, my sister is very good with, like, Instagram and TikTok and all that. And she does, like, broadcast a lot of her lessons on these platforms, like, puts together, like, videos and reels, right, of her teaching certain lessons. And it's just very clear that she has this engagement that carries her past a lot of the downsides of teaching, right? Of just, like, dealing with classroom management issues and reluctant administrators and things like that. So, and I just didn't have that. I did have a love of the subject, and that was a lot of times did allow me to push through but not always, not always. And yeah, I think like for secondary education teachers, unlike elementary education teachers, I think go into that because they just universally love kids, and they do because they've got to teach all the different subjects, and they may have some love for their subjects, but just teaching and educating is their number one joy, right? But I think for secondary educators, it's more about it's probably what they have is they have a large love for content, and then a love for kids, right? And almost no teachers have any love for the administration, right? For the not that they don't like their principals and things like that, but they don't like the paperwork and all that. So yeah, but I think when I was teaching high school, again, it was a lot of times what it was about 60% classroom management. And I'm not talking about all my classes were just nightmares to deal with. I pretty much universally loved working with my students. I know some of my former students listen to this show from time to time. They do reach out to me. But no, I did like my students, and I had a good rapport with them, and during lunch periods, we would all play poker together and things like that, and build that bond. And I did really like them a lot. But again, it was probably for me 60% love of content, right? And about 40%, love of children. But again, I think it's just being honest. So, right. But yeah, in going into college, there is something that you have to surrender for that a little bit, because I no longer am teaching. I hope to again someday, but I'm no longer teaching English literature, right? Which is my love. That's what I just got my master's in, and I want to be able to teach literature again someday. But what I'm dealing with now is I'm teaching kids composition and writing, tactics and strategies. And, that's sometimes fine. It's not always the number one thing I want to be doing, but it is something that I enjoy doing. I enjoy writing, and I enjoy, communicating, writing strategies and techniques, and also helping students find that, writing can actually be a fun activity, right? And a fun skill to learn, just like any other skill. And, and it is fun just to see them get that sometimes. But yeah, that's the trade-off, to where I no longer have to really worry about classroom management so much. The kids come in, and because they are, paying to be there generally, they are, they're a good audience, right? So yeah. But yeah, I started community college this week, and this week I start teaching at my alma mater, at UAB, and I was there this week for professional development and all that, and actually found out I didn't realize that I had this perk actually. I got an office, which is exciting. Last year as a graduate teaching assistant, while I was finishing grad school, I didn't get an office. I was teaching classes and I had office hours, but I didn't have an office. So, the kids, if they needed to talk about something or get extra help with something, they would have to join me on Zoom. But yeah, this semester I'm actually getting an office. I went up and checked it out the other day, and I'm excited because a lot of the new instructors have to share offices with each other. They have to work out the hours that they'll be there, and but I get my own office, which is kind of cool, right? I haven't had my own office since I worked at that park back in the day when I was doing the educating. I was the education director, yeah. So, and that was always nice, just to be able to have your own space. And I guess technically I had an office when I was teaching high school. It was just a big old classroom, right? But so um, so yeah, I got that, and I also got a parking space. So it's still not health insurance. It's still not retirement, but it's something, right? So because I have finally started working again, it means I can relax a little bit of from what I've been doing for work all summer long, which is, as you may have heard, delivering food and delivering packages to the good people of this city and the surrounding areas. I started doing this back when I was teaching high school. I think I started in 2019. And it was fun when I first started. And it was fun for a while. And it still is, to a degree, fun today. I've always enjoyed working for my car. I enjoy, driving around and like going on these missions, right? You pick up a package, you take it somewhere else. It's like being in like, I don't know, like Repo Man or like a Michael Mann movie or something. I don't know. it's just it's this feeling, just especially at night, like window down and just listening to like synthesizer music. I don't know. It's just this nice vibe, Sometimes it like if certain conditions are right, you just kind of feel like Don Johnson. I don't know. Not Nash Bridges, Don Johnson, obviously. I'm talking about like Sonny Crockett, right? So yeah. And but yeah, like when I was teaching high school, I obviously had that full-time job, and any work that you did in your car was just making extra money. Like just making extra money, like to go buy a cigar at the end of the day, or like drinks on Friday, or any other day of the damn week. I don't know. And yeah, like saving up for vacation and things like that. But obviously, like when I quit my job 2 years ago to go into grad school full time, on top of just like a small little stipend I would get from the university at the end of every month, just being in my car was the way that I made all of my money. And of course I would like supplement everything with like, I would tutor students in English and, just like pick up other odd jobs here and there. Like go on film shoots with my friend Dave, and just, be like a PA or whatever. But yeah, like I just, it's just been this summer. It's been like incredibly exhausting. Because, even though you are in the car and you do have air conditioning, fortunately, you're just like in the hot sun all day long, constantly getting in and getting out of the car. And, putting age and miles on your car and just spending so much money in gas and being away from the house and just like having to like, just settle for eating fast food every day. It's just, it's been, something that I've been incredibly looking forward to taking a break from, right? And just, also just, just not being able to do the job that, you trained hard for and that you enjoy, actually knowing how to do, which is teaching, it could lead to a little bit of a loss of dignity after a while, right? Like this, this summer, especially like in the last few weeks as schools have been getting back into session, and I've been delivering food to like a lot of schools, right? To like teachers who are in professional development training or something like that. And it's like in another life, these people would be my colleagues. But now they're just like accepting a plastic bag of, full of like Nukes sandwiches from me and just being like, thank you. You're you were very speedy in that delivery, right? It's just to a degree there's a little bit of a loss of dignity in it, you know? And but I don't know, who am I kidding? At the same time, like I saw some, you know, some numbers from like the Bureau of Labor Statistics recently, and you know, it's like still like 42% of, you know, teachers work, you know, second jobs. And so obviously a lot of those teachers now probably, you know, like back in the old days, you know, you would actually have to go to like a night job and like bartend or work at Starbucks or something like that, you know, and close up at like 10 or 11 o'clock. And now you can kind of get in your car because of these, you know, gigs, you know, like Grubhub and Uber and DoorDash. And you just go and, you know, make a certain amount of money at night, and then you get to go home whenever you want to. So, you know, it does work out. So. But I lost my train of thought. So I've been home this week, right? I've been able to kind of go to work and then just come home and like do some work after that, like, you know, just you know, get on and prepare classes and things like that, and then just kind of have the rest of the day where I'm off. And that's kind of nice. And I need to find better things to do with my days off. Not that I didn't enjoy what I did this week, which is just sit down and just watch Netflix. I actually binged a show. I haven't binged a show on Netflix in almost a year, I think. I think the last show that I sat down and pretty much watched like all the way through within like a couple of days was that The Fall of the House of Usher, I think, on Netflix, right? This horror show that I watched with my wife Jessica. But yeah, this week I've been binge watching. I just finished it last night. This show that came on AMC in 2022, I think, called Kevin Can Fuck Himself. Or I guess since it's on like basic cable, is that still a thing anymore? I don't know. But yeah, it's still on one of those like channels that's regulated by the FCC, where you can't say certain swear words or whatever. AMC, right? Yeah, I think it's called Kevin Can F Himself. And every time they show the title of the show, you know, it's like, it really is like Kevin Can Fuck Himself, but they like scribble through, you know, the U and the C to kind of stylize it, so you know what they're saying, so, right? And I was interested in the show when it first came on a couple of years ago, but I just didn't watch it because I you know, I guess it was on basic cable or something, because I have like an antenna, but you know, it can only get like the local CBS station. So and I guess you could like pay for like AMC Plus or something, but nah, I'm not gonna do that. That's like another subscription. I do pay for Shudder, which is a company that, like a streaming service that's run by AMC that just shows horror movies, and I use that for watching Joe Bob Briggs, which you know, the horror host that comes on every couple of weeks. So yeah, I was interested in Kevin Can F Himself a couple of years ago, and I think it's because I talked about the show when it first came on, but I know that I was at the very least talking about a kind of premise. I need to go back and find it. I think I have like a short clip from it on my YouTube. Something that's called like the zany neighbors of the sitcom dimension. Maybe that was like an episode title or something like that. I need to look it up. But, you know, I was sort of, I don't know if I was talking about it in the context of that show when it first came out, of Kevin Can F Himself, but I was discussing how, you know, kind of like just like in Who Framed Roger Rabbit, you know, where there's an adult, like a human universe, like a real world that lives alongside the cartoon universe. like that's possible in other mediums as well, right? Or media, it's like, and what would that look like? And it's like, how every sitcom always has like a zany next door neighbor, like you got Kramer or whatever, or like Steve Urkel, right? Let's take Steve Urkel for example, who will come over to like the house, and they'll be like a pest and annoy like the Carl, the Carl Winslow, right? And they're always really funny and everything, right? But like, it's like in the sitcom dimension, right? But once they sort of leave that set, right? Once they leave like the three walls of that set, what happens to them? Well, they just kind of go into our collective memory, right? And we just sort of remember them for what they are when they're on television, right? And so if the sitcom dimension were to live alongside the real world dimension, I know you know where I'm going with this, right? I mean, then that character would actually really have to deal with their real world anxieties, their real world problems, that they can only express in like the hacky jokes and the one-liners and the catchphrases when they're in the sitcom, right? So like, I'll give you an example. I'll show you what I mean. So like Steve Urkel, when he's on the set of Family Matters, he's saying like, "Did I do that?" And he's like constantly knocking shit down. But why is he over there? Well, the idea, right, is that Steve Urkel does not have a family unit of his own that's as welcoming and that's as warm as like the Winslow family. Okay? And by the way, if you don't know what I'm talking about, this is the show Family Matters. Okay? It was a show that ran on, I think it was ABC, the American Television Network, ABC, between, I believe, like maybe 1990 or 89 and maybe 1996 or 7, something like that. But it was a pretty big show of the 1990s, right? Because, it just constantly came on in reruns, and it was just one of those after school shows that a lot of people, I guess my age, watched. But, yeah, like alongside, it was like a weird hodgepodge. You would watch like Family Matters, and there would be stuff like Saved by the Bell, but you would also watch like older stuff like Gilligan's Island and the Brady Bunch. So anyway, the Facts of Life. Okay, anyway, I'm going on one of those tangents again. So yeah, like Steve Urkel is over at the Winslow house constantly because he doesn't have this family unit of his own to go to, right? So once he leaves that set, imagine that he goes back to his own house, right? And it's not as brightly lit as the Winslow house. It's really drab, actually. Because they live in Chicago, and there's just like that kind of like just drab, Midwest, just light. And it's like cold. And he just goes into like, Steve Urkel just goes into his lonely house next door to the Winslow house. And maybe he sees like a note on the refrigerator from his mom that says that she has to work late, right? And like the dad is out of town on another one of his business trips. And so like Steve Urkel just kind of like goes, maybe like puts a little microwave dinner in and takes it down to his sad basement and just like eats it alone while he works on like his inventions and all that like almost never work most of the time. And eventually he's just down there for so long because he doesn't have any friends, he doesn't have a girlfriend or anything, and he just gets so depressed. And the only thing that can, kind of cheer him up, the only thing he can do as a reflex is just go next to the Winslows, right? And because he's really socially awkward, nobody really cares about him, and he's always trying to make such friends and a good impression on people that when he's at the Winslows, he tries too hard, right? So yeah, like you're getting this right. It's just that's the combination of the two. So and that's the premise behind the show. Kevin Can F Himself, and I was fascinated by it when it first came on because I can't believe that maybe nobody's ever had this idea before. But I think it's like also people have had this idea before, but it's just more like in movies like Roger Rabbit where they sort of put the real world alongside something else, right? Some other kind of medium. But yeah, like the idea though of welding one of those like hack kind of blue collar sitcoms together with like a drama, like the dramatic reality, is really a very unique idea. And as I was watching this show, and it's a show that only ran for 2 seasons, and I think it was probably what I get this feeling from like a lot of shows that were canceled at the end of like a second season or a third season. I feel like the show was probably canceled about and halfway through the second season, because you can tell that they're really taking their time and being very careful about how they're telling the story. And then in like the last 3 or 4 episodes, just everything is like sort of rushed to a conclusion. And so I think that's probably what happened with it. But it's just the idea, like when I was watching it, is I was like, this is a very important kind of a show. So yeah, the basic idea, the basic premise. Let me light the cigar and I'll tell you about the premise. So the basic idea for this show is that it's like a I don't know, like a King of Queens show, or like Everybody Loves Raymond. One of these shows where that's become popular within like the past 20 years. I don't think they're popular anymore, but it's like, but yeah, the name of the show, Kevin Can F Himself, comes from like, I'm pretty sure it comes from Kevin James, right? Who's the I guess just the prototypical star of this type of show, right? Where he's like this blue collar guy, and like on Kevin Can F Himself, the lead character Kevin is like a cable installer or whatever, who like on the pilot episode he gets promoted to fiber optics, right? So this blue collar guy who's like really, no better way to say it, but like very out of shape and just kind of a schlub and like unmotivated in life, and just his hobbies are like 2 things: drinking beer and drinking whiskey. And he's married to like just this impossibly beautiful woman who does nothing all day long but just put up with his antics and his schemes, and also all of his dumb friends, and like just the fact that like his father couldn't move into his own place, and so he moved in with them, and that's like that show. It's the exact premise of that show King of Queens, right? That was on in like the late 90s with Kevin James, or he like works for UPS, and he lives with like Leah Remini, who was a Scientologist back then, but not on the show, I guess. That would be an interesting sitcom, right? It's like where one of them's Catholic, the other's Scientologist. I don't know. And Tom Cruise could guest star. But yeah, so Leah Remini was, like just this impossibly, just a very beautiful woman who's just living with this schlub and constantly putting up with his antics. And like the dad was played by Jerry Stiller, and who lived in the basement. And yeah, that's like on this show, the dad lives in the basement and all that. So yeah, so like the show is a sitcom, and it's like an incredibly well done sitcom. It's like, I mean, I wouldn't say well done, but like it's not like this, like a lot of times when you see shows that are about, or movies that are about stand-up comedy, and whenever they do stand-up comedy, the jokes are really bad, right? Because they're written by screenwriters, not comedians. This show is not like that, where it's like the sitcom material is 100% buyable as a sitcom, right? Even the situations they get into. Like on one episode, Kevin has this scheme to like, he always has these get rich quick schemes, right? And so, he has this scheme to like open up an escape room in his basement, right? So he gets all this stuff together and builds an escape room and things like that, with his like dumbass best friend Neil and his father Pete, right? So, yeah, the show is like a sitcom, and the idea, right, is that Kevin is constantly coming up with the schemes, and like his wife is just putting up with it and just constantly rolling her eyes and having this like dry wit and sarcasm, and that's like her only defense against them, right? And so yeah, like on the first episode they set it up where she's doing laundry, and she's walking through the living room set with her laundry basket, and Kevin is like playing beer pong with his friend Neil, right? This 250-pound, 7-foot guy, I guess, who's supposed to be like a comment on Brad Garrett on Everybody Loves Raymond, like the sidekick brother of Raymond, right? Who's always like a foil to him, I guess. But so yeah, like the wife Allison, is walking through the living room with like a laundry basket, and she starts to go to the kitchen, and Kevin's like, hey, hun, while you're in the kitchen, and he like throws his beer bottle, like into her laundry basket. He's like, can you take that? And, and like the audience like laughs and all that. And then Allison leaves the set. She goes through the door into the kitchen, and suddenly they shoot it in the kitchen, and it's no longer a sitcom. It's like a Breaking Bad drama, right? It's shot like single camera, like just where she's no longer all made up to look like this sitcom wife, but just like this put upon woman who's just being going through this domestic abuse of passive aggression, and so it's just that's the idea of the show. So throughout the show, what really does happen is that it's just like any kind of sitcom where, there's always, like on sitcoms, there's an A story and there's a B story. Well, like in this case, the A story is like a drama. It revolves around Allison, who is constantly having to deal with the fallout of her husband's stupid schemes. And the B story is the sitcom, where Kevin, who you never see in the A story, Kevin is always, whenever you see Kevin, he's always, in the sitcom reality, right? And, Kevin is always trying to come up with these, get rich quick outfits, right? So, like building an escape room, for instance, or like running for public office or whatever. So, and until the second season, it's really interesting because none of the sitcom plots carry over into each episode, because the idea of most sitcoms, right, is that there are almost never any through lines. Like Jerry Seinfeld may be a comedian throughout the entire length of the show, but what he does one week isn't always affected by what he did last week, right? That's maybe a bad example because Seinfeld was kind of the first sitcom to actually do that, but but yeah, like, I mean, on the King of Queens, right? Kevin James never deals with one thing on one episode that he had to deal with on the last episode, right? So yeah, like in the sitcom B stories, almost every episode has a different storyline that's in no way affected by the episode before it. But in the drama plots, right, in the A stories, like with the drama, it's Allison is always constantly having to deal with the fallout from episode to episode. So there are through lines, right? If this makes any sense, but yeah, I mean, it's just it's a really important show because as I was watching it, I was just thinking about like the idea that like the one thing that I think 3 generations have in common, right? This would be the baby boomers, Generation X, and then my generation, the millennials, right? Is that we were all raised on these sitcoms, right? And these sitcoms played a very important role in for advertisers, obviously, because the idea is that you're watching television for the products, for the advertising, and the commercials give you the products, right? They give you like the Bon Ami, right? The bathtub scrubber, and they give you, the furniture that you can buy, and they give you the coffee that you need to drink, right? So the commercials give you these products, and then the sitcoms that you watch give you a place to put them, okay? So the sitcoms that you watch are all infused with this, domestic suburban ideology, right? And I know I'm really starting to sound like a grad student here, maybe not even a grad student, like an undergrad here, but I understand that. Okay. But when you watch these shows, you think about like, being those characters, right? Like you watch a show like Friends, and Friends gives you this, perfect picture of like being young and being single and like living in New York City in this impossibly expensive but somehow affordable for your lifestyle loft apartment, right? It's the same thing like, when we grow up and we watch these sitcoms, like I, grew up watching shows, as I said, like the Brady Bunch, right? Or even shows like going back a little bit further, like Leave It to Beaver, right? These shows just, give you this idea of like what it might be like to, have just this perfect American house and a family, right? And of course, later on with like All in the Family, and then all the shows that show inspired, leading up to and including, I suppose, like Everybody Loves Raymond and The King of Queens and all that show, and all those shows. It's all about sort of, dysfunction, right? Like the family is dysfunctional, but they love each other, right? Like Allison, is constantly dealing with, her husband Kevin's like oafishness and his just general idiocy, but they love each other at the end of the day, right? And so, yeah, this show is sort of knocking that ideology on its head, obviously, just like Who Framed Roger Rabbit did, I suppose, all those years ago. And it's sort of showing like what would be the fallout of that, right? Like Carl Winslow bans Urkel from his house. Okay, so what would really be the fallout of that? Well, Urkel has nowhere to go. He has no family to turn to. So Urkel's just going to come back next time and try even harder, right? Or, potentially ruin Carl's life in some way, right? By like, maybe showing up at his work and, getting into hijinks there that cause Carl's reputation to be sullied. Okay. So, and that's very much like, Kevin can F himself. There's a really, and all the drama scenes are definitely played for drama, right, on that show. But there are some very funny moments where, Allison is talking to a friend of hers and, again, she's like, sort of the implication is that Kevin can do whatever he wants and it never follows him. He just goes on to the next scheme, right? But for Allison, she feels the effects long after whatever he did. So there's a scene where she's talking to her friend and she's like, remember last year when I got that job as a paralegal? And just for the first time, I was so happy and I really had something that was my own and that I could do and that I was good at. And Kevin thought that I was having an affair with my boss, so he went and put sugar in his gas tank. And the friend goes like, yeah, that was kind of funny. And she's like, no, I lost my job because of it. And I had to go back to working at the package store. And Kevin never once apologized. He never once said I'm sorry, or he never once tried to do anything to console me. So, it's And you're listening to this and you're like, I can see a character doing that on a sitcom and just laughing at it, right? But, and a lot of course, obviously, this being like, made in the 2020s, there are obviously like a lot of comments on gender dynamics in sitcoms, the way that sitcoms have, traditionally, I guess, unless it's something like I Love Lucy or whatever, or, to a degree like the Mary Tyler Moore Show, right? Even though Mary Tyler Moore never really messed anything up, it was always like, the other characters on the show who would do that for her. But yeah, like I Love Lucy, but like most sitcoms are traditionally about like sort of just excusing men's behavior because they're just like stupid men, right? Because they just are naturally idiots, right? And they don't know how to be adults or be mature or something like that. And it's always up to the woman to counterbalance him, right? And so yeah, just the show deals with that like I think incredibly smartly. I think it's just a very important show because it does it does tip that, and I think it would have been a much more important show, and I think it would have been a much bigger show had it come on maybe about 15 years ago, right? When people were still when sitcoms were still kind of a thing. Like I know that there are maybe some sitcoms that are still on television today, but that it's pretty much a format that has gone away. Like even on like, the sitcom was always like the staple of the primetime lineup on the three major channels, like NBC, CBS, and ABC, right? But they've pretty much gone away in favor of, I don't know, like, like NCIS and Blue Bloods and all that stuff, right? And Yellowstone, I don't know. These are, sitcoms are very much a thing of the past, I think, because like people have really just, gotten over that format. And I think like when they want to watch a sitcom, there's so many to choose from, the last 60 years of television. And they come on in reruns and all that. It's just really difficult. Like, and sitcoms are very much perceived, I think, as like hackneyed comedy, by, younger generations, right? Especially Generation Alpha, the new generation, right? And yeah, I think like my generation, the millennials, are really the last to grow up with like the sitcom being a regular part of like our cultural diet, And so yeah, I think like the show was only on for 2 seasons because I just think it was a show that was, even though it was like ahead of its time in the fact that there really never been anything like it before, or a conceit like that before on television, it was also just like a little bit late, because, but I don't know, at the same time, the show did make me think about all this stuff about how like, how much of like, this did I buy into as a kid, right? Like growing up, like probably I would say 90% of the television that I watched until I was in maybe early college, right, was sitcoms. So that rubbed off on me in a certain way. And I do very specifically remember moving into my first apartment. This may be sad if you hear it, but I don't know. Maybe you were the same way. But I do remember moving into my first apartment in 2003. And, arranging my furniture to resemble that of a sitcom. And thinking about how I would do that and realizing, houses aren't built that way. It's like houses are not built to have all the furniture facing like one wall and then to have like, just a TV right there. It's like a lot of houses are just like not shaped that way, to naturally support everything on one side of the room and nothing on the other, right? And so it was very difficult for me to do that. And I would be like, I could cheat this this chair out and the audience would still be, so it was just, I wasn't like thinking that hard about it, but you know what I mean? It's like I did arranged the furniture in my first apartment to somewhat resemble a television sitcom set, right? So that it would have, a fourth wall that could be broken, and it was like, I lived next to a friend of mine, and like, she would always come over, and we would have conversations there, and I would sometimes think about like, oh, that's a punchline, right? And even today, I think about the idea that like my life sometimes kind of resembles a bit of a sitcom, doesn't it? Right? I mean, I think like all lives kind of do, right? We wake up in the morning and we go to a job, and like there's funny people that we know at work. We come home and we kind of have some witty banter with our spouses or whatever, And yeah, we all have that zany friend. And I was thinking that, like, if my life were a sitcom, I think there would be probably a crossover episode, maybe, like with my friend Dave, because my friend Dave, like lives a block away from me, and yeah, like sometimes like the other morning, right? I got up and I walked over. I took my coffee and I walked over to his house, and I came in the backyard and went down and came in the back entrance of the kitchen. And just as a joke, I was like, hey, Mr. S, right? And I sort of waited for an applause break because I could just hear, just a studio full of people cheering and being so happy that, like, Mike was here, right? So... Well, with that, I'd like to say thank you so much for joining me here. Early in the morning, the sun's finally coming up. On a Saturday. I will continue to do shows just like this throughout the semester. I have no plans right now of stopping.